All right, welcome back to Operation Lone Ranger. We are doing turn 1.6 for Japan. But before we get into that, we missed a couple of things. Primarily the recruitment role for Mongolia. So Mongolia is a puppet state of the Soviet Union, and they get a recruitment role at a 4 because they have 4 territories. They get it at a 4 every turn until the Soviet Union goes to war with a major power, and then Mongolia becomes absorbed into the Soviet Union. Russia takes over its territory, and also all of its units that are on the board take control of them. So that's one thing that we missed. It's very easy to miss recruitment roles. It's probably the most missed thing in people's turns by and far. So I did do a roll off camera, and it was a 6, so it was a failure, so they don't get any extra units. The other thing that we missed was regarding the United States and this sphere of influence strategic objective. So the sphere of influence I'd mentioned last video was regarding the Monroe Doctrine and the U.S. guarantee of protection across the rest of the Americas, Central America and South America. But that's not the case, not even close. Sphere of influence has to do with the United States maintaining control of a lot of these islands in the Pacific, like Attu and Kiska. I believe Midway is one. We can check the rules here. Sphere of influence is possess Wake, Midway, Attu and Kiska, and Guam. So, and the bonus that we get for Sphere of Influence is 1 additional strategic naval movement. And I can explain that later on once we get into a situation where we do want to do strategic naval movements. But let's get into Japan. Japan does have a recruitment role for Siam. So Siam is aligned right now to Japan, but they will not become fully aligned until, or they are controlled by Japan. They aren't fully aligned with Japan until, I believe it's 1939. It should be on the board over here. Yes, Siam aligns. 6th of January, 1939. Alrighty. So, we're going to go ahead and do that recruitment roll because otherwise we're just going to forget it. So, and it's only at a 1. Siam only has 1 territory, so they're going to have to hit at a 1 to get any free units. And it's an 11, so they fail. Alright. Alright, so Japan, we only have 1 major factory there in Kyushu, so we only get 1 technology roll. And the pretty standard thing to do for Japan starting out is to go for improved construction. Improved construction is going to do a number of things for us. It will allow us to produce facilities for -1 per stage, -1 IPP per stage. So a lot of facilities, like major factories, takes a couple stages before you can actually place them. And major factories, for instance, cost 6 IPP per stage. So with improved construction, that will allow us to either 1, decrease the cost per stage by 1 IPP, or we can combine the cost to reduce the production time by a complete stage. So we can start at stage 2, but it's going to cost us 12 IPP. We don't get the -1 IPP discount, however. So we can either get the discount, and it will take us 3 stages to complete, or we can go ahead and pay for 2 of the stages and be able to pay for the final stage. And at that point, we would get the discount of -1 IPP, and we would be able to place it in the following turn. So that's improved construction. I believe also when your factories get strategic bombed, they, or any facility, I think for that matter, they actually will take -1 damage. So whatever the attacking player who is conducting the strategic bombing, whatever they roll for their damage, you take off one IPP from that. One IPP from that. I believe that's correct. But we can double check that once we get to a situation where we are going to conduct strategic bombing. But that's going to be some time away. All right. So Japan has 16. They have 16 IPP to spend. And the strategy for Japan is building up for war in China. So now we do get the option to do an influence roll on a Chinese warlord. And this is a new feature in 4.2.1. So, or just 4.2. And we have the ability, if we hit our influence roll, to form what's called the Dao government. And this is basically a Chinese government that is sympathetic towards the Japanese cause. It is controlled by Japan. So basically it's like a puppet state. But the Dao government would be able to receive lend-lease from Japan, and they would be able to conquer other Chinese territories without it impacting the allies, right? So when Japan goes and attacks China, the allies are going to get some income increases from that, okay? So if Japan were able to hit their influence roll and create the Dao government, they would be able to invade China instead without it impacting the allies' income increases. So pretty cool. I haven't tried it yet. I don't think I probably will. Maybe I should, just to kind of show it off and how it works. But basically how it works is it's a lot like the CCP. You get an influence roll. So Japan would get an influence roll. It would only be at a 1 because they only have one territory bordering any Chinese territory, and that's Rihe. So whether we were going to go after Suyan or Beiping, we would only get an influence roll of 1, and it would be able to be boosted by 1 IPP to make it a 2. So the odds of us hitting it are pretty low, but I don't think we're going to go for that in this game. So at any rate, but it pretty much acts a lot like how it does with the CCP and their influence rolls. Very similar. All right, so let's get into our turn. Let's roll for improved construction for our technology, and that is at a 7 or less. Or 7 or higher, rather. Excuse me. And we do hit. It's at a 10. I got influence rolls on the brain where you need to be less than that. So we do move up 1. Alrighty. Stage 1 of improved construction. That's good. And now let's get into purchases. So like I said, we have 16 IPP. For Japan, like I said, the strategy is really to build up for war with China. Now, as a Japanese player, you don't have to go to war with China. You can just keep building up, and then once tensions start to rise with the Allied powers, you can just skip China and say, well, I'm just going to go after Britain and the Dutch there and the Dutch East Indies, or I'm going to go after France, that kind of thing. But China will allow us to gain some more income per turn, and also it will meet some of the requirements for boosting our income, like this one, China. So there are 6 territories in China that we need to capture for us to be able to gain an extra 1 IPP per territory, which would add up to a total of 6. And that's going to be Beiping, Hopei, Shantung, Nanking, Hunan, and Guangdong. So those are the 6 territories that Japan needs to conquer. It's basically all those coastal territories in eastern China. And we would get a IPP bonus at the end of our turn for occupying all those territories. So that's something to consider. I mean, you might think that it's worth it to invade China and to try and get that. So, and maybe the game is going in a certain way that you might think that it's not worth it. So it's just a decision you have to make. But we're going to go into our purchases, and we are going to cater our purchases as if we are going to invade China here in a couple of turns. So one thing that we're going to want to do is purchase Marines. Okay, so Marines are special forces units, and when we get into a situation where they are in combat, then I can kind of explain kind of how they work. So we will purchase 2 Marines, place them into the place unit box. We don't have any free units to place at the end of our turn. We do have some of these Japanese light carriers here with an American roundel under them. You might be asking, why is an American roundel underneath a Japanese light carrier? Well, that's to indicate to me that we are not allowed to advance these light carriers or place these light carriers until we are at war with the United States. So once we go to war with the United States, then we can start advancing these light carriers to the next stage, and we can place this guy here. So that's what that's all about. Now, as far as Marines and Special Forces units like mountain infantry, or I think it applies to airborne as well, you can only place 2 per turn. So we can only place 2 Marines per turn, and that's going to cost us a total of 8. They cost 4 each. Okay, so we got that. And our other purchases are going to be, I really like artillery. I think artillery is fantastic. So we just happen to have 8 IPP left. So we're going to purchase 2 more artillery for 4 apiece. So we'll go over here to the box and pick out 2 artillery. And place them in the place unit box. Okay, so that's for our purchases. We have no combat movements. We're not at war. We're not looking to go to war for at least a couple of turns. But we are going to do some non-combat moves, mostly related to our Navy. But before we do that, we are going to put some units in position here, because apparently the Russians are getting a little frisky here on our border. So we are going to move a cavalry up to northern Manchuria. We're going to move these 2 infantry to northern Manchuria. And these 2 infantry in Rihi, we are going to move up to northern Manchuria. We also have a mountain infantry in northern Manchuria, and we'll just keep him there because he would be a good defense, because it is a mountain. If they were going to do a border clash, they would be clashing in the mountains. They're in northern Manchuria, so we're just going to counter with that. We are going to move 1 infantry from Korea over into Rihi. Other moves. Let's see. Let's kind of situate our Navy here. Let's take this fleet carrier, move him down into the East China Sea. This light carrier will come down and likewise move into the East China Sea. Now, one cool special ability that Japan gets is they can use destroyers to transport 1 infantry class unit. So that really helps a lot, just in terms of not needing just in terms of not needing as many units. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna go ahead and move this battleship into the Yellow Sea, along with this. Don't we start out with 2 battleships? I'm going to check the rule book on that. I think we do. But this, we're going to move this coastal submarine down into P32. This destroyer will come up and chill in P16. That's a movement of 2. This transport will also come up into P15, and he will grab a motorized and an infantry in Hokkaido and transport him into the Yellow Sea to Rihi. This fighter in Formosa will come into Korea. I feel like I'm missing some units in the setup. Like, something doesn't look right. Let me check the chart. It's frustrating. So I think I'm missing a battleship, and I'm definitely missing some planes. So, let's see here. Alright, let's get the chart out. Alright, battleships. Yeah, we're supposed to place 2. 2 in P13. So let's get another battleship on the board. Sorry about this. It's kind of... I don't know how I overlooked this. So he does start in the Sea of Japan, but he will come over to... We're just going to go ahead and naval move him into P14. The light cruiser will come down into P32, along with this other light cruiser in P15. Let's see. These 2 destroyers here are going to stay. This battle cruiser will also come into P14. This heavy cruiser as well. This torpedo boat destroyer will come down into P32. These 2 submarines in P15 will come down 1, 2, 3 into P42. We have another coastal sub here in P16, and he's going to come down to P15. We have a heavy cruiser. Oh man, we knocked over a KMT guy in Nanking. Japan's already getting frisky. All right. Yes, he'll come over 2 into P14. Torpedo boat destroyer in P16 will come into P32. That's a movement of 2. We will use a destroyer in Kyushu, off in the Sea of Japan, to bring an infantry over to Rihi. So he will come into there. This heavy cruiser that's off the Caroline Islands will come over 1, 2 into P32 and join this fleet. Yes. Alrighty. This submarine, we'll just leave that submarine there. He's fine. No, we'll have him join up these other two submarines. Why not? They'll hang out together. This destroyer came up from Formosa. He still has 2 more movement points. He has a total of 4. Well, he started from a major port in Formosa, so he technically has a movement of 4. Yeah, so its default is 3. So he has 2 more. We're going to pick up this infantry in Tokyo, bring him into Rihi. And I'm pretty certain that we are missing a militia in Formosa. So let's check the setup chart here. Yes. Militia in Formosa. So that was overlooked. Goodness. So we'll place that guy there. I believe we missed some aircraft. We got the fighter in Formosa. We need a fighter and 2 tactical bombers in Tokyo. Somehow that got overlooked. So we're just gonna we are gonna get some tactical bombers. So these guys start out in Tokyo. And they're just all going to come over to Korea. Okay. I believe that's all for non-combat, unless if we completely missed more units in the setup. I don't think we did. Maybe I'll double check it off camera just to make sure, but I think we're good. All right, I think next turn we're going to focus on reinforcing Formosa, kind of use it as a staging point for invasion against China. So that is all for non-combat. We need to place units next. And we will be done with our turn. All right, so we have 2 Marines. We can only place them in, well, we could place 1 in Rihi because we do have a minor factory there, but we're going to place them in Kyushu. And we can place up to 5. So these 2 artillery will also go into Kyushu. All right. That's the end of our turn. Our base income is 16, right there, and we collect an extra 3 IPP because of receiving oil from the United States. Now, this will go down by 1 every turn that we declare war on a minor neutral power. That includes China. So once we start conducting offensive operations in China, and we launch attacks, that income increase that we get from United States oil will go down by 1 each turn. So, but as it stands right now, we will collect an extra 3, so we will collect 19. So 10. And that's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 1 more will get us there. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 17, 18, 19. All right, 19 for Japan. All right, so that's it for Japan's turn. Next turn, we will do 1.7 Commonwealth. And following that will be 1.8 for France. So until then, I'll see you later and take care.